yeah, this is Nutty Rat Shack. Yes, I'm wearing a big jumper, but it's freezing, so please forgive me. Okay, I'm gonna have a go at defending The Miz. Right, the biggest argument to The Miz winning the title seems to be the lack of build-up. First thing I want to do in explaining this is sort of give you a quick explanation of what a traditional build-up meant. Two of the examples I want to use are HBK and Bret Hart. I'll also probably mention The Rock. Their build-ups were over a 1.5 year period. Well, a year to 2 years period. Most of them came from tag teams. And the tag team broke up and they went on to a mid-card belt. And they had a lot of solid mid-card feuds. And then from there, they went on to the WWF belt. And with The Rock, he started off in a big stable as a small person, rose up in the stable, and then became... Of course, he did do a face thing before that, but nobody really counts that because he really didn't get over until they turned him heel. And he built up from there. He won the mid-card belt, and then he won the WWF heavyweight or WWE belt. And that's the basis of what a proper build-up should be. The main factors that I think people aren't taking into account when they're looking at the Miz's build-up is there actually aren't very many strong mid-carders or upper mid-carders for him to feud with. I mean, realistically, who is he going to feud with? Ted DiBiase, R-Truth? I suppose you could have said John Morrison. I'm actually going to mention John Morrison later. But there aren't very many of what I would have called the old upper mid-carders who swapped between being main event and being mid-card. Jericho is probably the only modern example of that. CM Punk I would also class as being a solid upper mid-carder. Who could easily flip between main event and mid-card. The other thing I'd like to point out is that there is a difference between a personality-based build and a technical-based build. Technical wrestlers and the way you build them up is different. Technical-based wrestlers, they need to be in the ring a lot. You don't put a mic in their hands. You get them in the ring, you get them having matches, and you keep them having matches so that everybody sees their ability. And they get over based on their ability. Personality builds are based around mic skills and charisma. And granted, I don't think the Miz's mic skills are 100% yet. I would say they're around the 70 mark, but they're definitely on the positive side, and he likes to use them. So his build has very much been a personality build, very much the same as Cena's early build was. His build was far more based on his rap gimmick and his personality and his charisma than it was actually on his matches, because his match skill was never particularly good. So there is a big difference between the two builds-up. I think as a personality build-up, Miz has had plenty of on-screen time. And I think that he has gotten over sufficiently to be looked at as main event. You also need to take into account that there is a serious lack of main eventers. They haven't been building new main eventers and new upper mid-carders for, and you could say anywhere between 4 and 6 years. They've not built anyone really for. And when I say built, I do mean built up in the sense of a traditional build-up. I don't mean giving them a money in the bank and just throwing them in. But as I said, the traditional build-up is coming from a tag team, check. Winning a mid-card belt, check. Going on to win the WWE title, check. He's, in effect, had a traditional build-up, but in a much more compact space of time. And he has massively improved over that period of time. I think a lot of people are being overly judgy based on his US title reign. But you need to take into account that 90% of the time that he had the US title belt, he was holding either the Unified Tag Team titles or the Money in the Bank briefcase. So he wasn't actually just US champion for more than 2-3 weeks at the most, either side. And no, you're not going to get a massive mid-card feud when the person is having feuds for other things. It won't happen that way. I think, considering the situation and considering the fact that he hasn't got a massive amount of strong mid-card opponents, there aren't really any good upper mid-card opponents. They are absolutely desperate for new main eventers. Taking account of the level of retirements and injuries at the moment, they desperately need new main eventers. I mean, we can look at the other options. I actually think, for a lot of people, John Morrison is probably very close to the top of that list. However, if you look, when they've tried to push Jomo, he's gotten injured. So you can't blame the fact that Jomo hasn't had a consistent push on the Miz, because the only difference between the two is Miz hasn't been injured. You know what I mean? They can't push people who are hurt. When Jomo arrived on Raw, they put up brilliant promos for him, and then he hurt his ankle. And there's only so much they can do to push a guy. Because these days they won't push guys to fight when they're injured, and they won't, not as much as they used to, purely because of that they realise how dangerous it is now. So of course Jomo lost his push, and it's happened a couple of times for him. So I think that is the main reason that Jomo isn't in the spot Miz is in now. Is purely because of his injuries. The other person I've heard mentioned is Danielson. I think it's a bit too early for Danielson. I don't think he's been in the WWE for long enough. I mean, you have to take account that Miz has been part of the WWE or FCW since 2004. Granted, he did go off screen for until about 2006, but he was in the company. From 2006, that's still a 4-year build-up. Taking him from jobber nobody to being a solid upper mid-card main event. And I don't think that's a bad amount of time. He's had a lot of on-screen time. Granted, he hasn't had a lot of major feuds, but you have to take account the fact that a big chunk of the time he was in tag teams and he was involved in Money in the Banks and that sort of thing, which does take off the time for those big mid-card feuds. And as I said, who is he going to feud with? With the injuries and the retirements, there isn't really anyone who has the ability to pull somebody up. So I think that, taking account of everything, I think Mrs. Build actually isn't that bad at all. I think we tend to as fans, be over judgy on what a build-up should be. To me, if that person is over, and you can argue whatever you want about The Miz, he is over. He is absolutely over. As a heel, the fact that when he says I'm The Miz and I'm awesome, the whole crowd echoes it back. That tells you you're over. The other thing I've heard mentioned is that people think he doesn't have sufficient in-ring skill. Do you want me to start the list of people who don't really have enough in-ring skill? We're not talking about the Kurt Angle era of WWE. Kurt Angle, Benoit era of WWE. We're not. That's not what the WWE bases things on. He has a good personality, good charisma, and sufficient ring skill. And that's the difference. He can put on a good match if you put him in with someone good. But that can be said the same for Cena in many ways. You put him in with someone who's good and he can produce a good match. You put him in with someone who's bad and you get a bad match. Just because someone isn't necessarily technically wow, that doesn't mean that they don't have a place in the main event. I personally see The Miz winning the belt as a really, really good precursor. I think that Miz winning the belt will bring up the Jomos and the Bryan Danielsons and possibly bring some more of the lesser known talents that have been stuck in Jobberland into the mid-card and actually rejuvenate the mid-card. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. The other thing I wanted to mention was Undertaker 010's Project of Awesomeness. Please check out the video, the link will be in the description. And he wants us all to say what we love about the programs we watch. As you know, I've been watching WWE forever. I watch TNA, I watch ROH. I watch it because I love professional wrestling. I enjoy the stories. I enjoy the matches. I enjoy the atmosphere of it all. Okay, I think that's probably my 2 cents for now. I know I've probably missed loads of stuff, but that's my little rant over with. Alright, take care, boys and girls.